Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Yamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 13, which is entitled The Descendants of Dhruva Maharaj, and we are on verse 24. Etad akyahi me Brahman Sunitatmaja chestitam Shraddhadanaya bhaktaya Tvam paravara vittama Etad akyahi me Brahman Sunitatmaja chestitam Shraddhadanaya bhaktaya Tvam paravara vittama Etad akyahi me Brahman Sunitatmaja chestitam Shraddhadanaya bhaktaya Tvam paravara vittama Etad akyahi me Brahman Sunitatmaja chestitam Shraddhadanaya bhaktaya Tvam paravara vittama Etad akyahi me Brahman Sunitatmaja chestitam Shraddhadanaya bhaktaya Tvam paravara vittama Etad akyahi me Brahman Sunitatmaja chestitam Shraddhadanaya bhaktaya Tvam paravara vittama etad akyahi me brahman sunitatmaja chestitam shraddhadanaya bhaktaya tvam paravara vittama etad, all these. Akyahi, please describe. Me, unto me. Brahman, O great Brahmana. Sunita Atmaja, of the son of Sunita, Vena. Chestitam, activities. Shraddhadanaya, faithful. Bhaktaya, unto your devotee. Tvam, you. Para avara, with past and future. Vittama, well conversant. Translation. Vidura requested Maitreya, "My dear Brahmana, you are well conversant with all subjects, both past and future. Therefore, I wish to hear from you all the activities of King Vena. I am your faithful devotee, so please explain this." Purport. Vidura accepted Maitreya as his spiritual master. A disciple always inquires from the spiritual master, and the spiritual master answers the question, provided the disciple is very gentle and devoted. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur said that by the mercy of the spiritual master, one is blessed with the mercy of the Supreme Lord. The spiritual master is not inclined to disclose all the secrets of transcendental science unless the disciple is very submissive and devoted. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, the process of receiving knowledge from the spiritual master entails submission, inquiry, and service. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So thank you all for attending this morning's Srimad Bhagavatam class, and I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to speak. So in context, where we are in Srimad Bhagavatam is, we've just been reading the pastimes of Dhruva Maharaj, and now Maitreya Muni is talking about the dynasty and the different descendants from this dynasty. And the topic of Maharaj Anga came up, and he was a very gentle, saintly king. And in the previous verse, it was mentioned that he had a very sinful son. So, and that his sinful son inspired him to renounce his kingdom. And later in the chapter, we'll see how when Maitreya Muni is describing the details of this, that Maharaj Anga was so saintly, so gentle, had such amazing character. And for him to have a son that was very sinful was just devastating. And he tried to reform him, but it didn't work. And then eventually he said, it's better to have no son than to have a bad son. Because he previously wanted a son, but now that he has one and it's a bad son, he says it's better to just not have a son at all, and that people who don't have sons are actually fortunate. They must have served the Supreme Lord, because it's causing so much pain. To have a son that brings the reputation of the family down, that degrades the reputation, is very heartbreaking, especially to someone of very noble character. And it's said that such a son will cause endless anxiety. Srila Prabhupada mentions a few times in Srimad Bhagavatam about a poet who mentions putra and mutra. So, putra means son and mutra means urine. And both of them come from the same channel. But if you are Krishna conscious and saintly, then you are putra, you're a son. But if you're not, if you're sinful, then you're as good as urine. Right? Strong words. And in one of the upcoming purports, we'll read that Srila Prabhupada is saying that a bad son is like a blind eye. It serves no purpose and it only causes pain. So all of this inspired Maharaj Anga to just renounce his kingdom and renounce his family life. And he actually ended up saying that having a bad son is a good thing, because if I had a good son, I would be attached to my family. But now that I have a bad son, I will renounce it, and it makes it easier to renounce. So at this point, Vidura had just heard the beginning. He heard that Maharaj Anga had a sinful son and he renounced his kingdom, and that King Vena, who was this sinful son, became the king. And because he is sinful, the sages actually cursed him to die. So Vidura has two questions. First, he asks, how did such a saintly king as Maharaj Anga end up with a son who's degrading the family reputation? And then he asks, and also, how is it that the Brahmanas, who are generally very tolerant and peaceful, have actually cursed him to die? Because that's not common of Brahmanas to behave that way. And it said there that his sinful activities were very, very serious, and that's why they were it was like an emergency situation. So Vidura is requesting all of this from Maitreya Muni because that's his spiritual master. And it's interesting how it says here that the spiritual master answers the questions provided the disciple is very gentle and devoted. It's an interesting point because simply to have a spiritual master does not mean that we will have transcendental realization. It's actually something that dawned on me very recently, embarrassingly late, I'd say. But if we approach the spiritual master in a challenging or offensive or any other mood besides submission and humility, then we won't actually get the transcendental realization from him. We won't actually understand what he's saying. It's not that he won't answer our questions. He will answer, but we will not understand it. And like it says here, he may not even be inclined to answer the question if we come with that mood. It says, the spiritual master is not inclined to disclose all the secrets of transcendental science unless the disciple is very submissive and devoted. So, this reminded me of this verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 1, Verse 8. Veta tvam somya tat sarvam tatvatastad anugrahat pruyo snigdhasya shishyasya guravo guyam apyuta. And because you are submissive, your spiritual masters have endowed you with all the favors bestowed upon a gentle disciple. Therefore, you can tell us all that you have scientifically learned from them. The key word here is snigdhasya, gentle, submissive. And this is, the sages were speaking to Sutta Goswami and saying that because you have displayed this mood of gentleness, your spiritual masters have bestowed all favors upon you. So therefore you can tell us, because you have realized it, you can tell us what you've realized. So when the guru is pleased, he bestows the mercy on the disciple, and realization comes in the form of that mercy. Well, mercy comes in the form of realization. That's why we see mental speculators. They can go on asking and asking and asking any kind of question. But they will never get the answer or the realization because they're asking in that challenging mood. They want to challenge God. They want quick answers. So even if they're asking, the answers won't come because of the mood. The purport mentions 3 important factors of the guru-disciple relationship: submission, inquiry, and service, which we also see in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, verse 34. The first thing, pranipat, submission. I was listening to a beautiful class by Keshav Maharaj, and it was just all about this topic. I actually wish he was giving that class here today, and I can send it to you if anyone wants to hear this class, but it was fantastic. And he was saying that the essence of submission is humility, and part of humility is patience, because you can only submissively follow if we have some level of humility. We approach the spiritual master, I don't know, I have no qualification, but I will follow you. And that takes humility, and it also takes patience, because we're saying, I don't know how long it's going to take, I don't know when the result will come, if ever, but I will follow you. So it requires a lot of patience to be submissive. Then the next one, pariprasna, inquiry. What are we meant to inquire from the spiritual master? It's questions that are for the benefit of society, questions that are going to spiritually uplift us and uplift others, not just chatting, hanging out, or just asking for the sake of asking questions. It's to really take in the answers and uplift ourselves and uplift society. And the third item, sevaya, service. So Keshav Maharaj says, from all the questions that you can ask, like we can ask our spiritual master so many hundreds of questions. And he said that, Srila Prabhupada said, I asked my spiritual master many questions, but actually I only asked him one question. How can I serve you? Because all the other questions were directed by this focus of service. And Keshav Maharaj mentioned that whether we're asking about where we should live, it's really asking, where can I serve you best? If we're asking about what ashram we should be in, we're really asking the spiritual master, what ashram should I be in to serve you best? That'll be the best for my spiritual life. If we're asking any kind of question, even that seems material, it's really, the focus is, how can I serve? So with these 3 things, submission, inquiry, and service, then we get the realization, as it said in Bhagavad Gita, tat vidi pranipatena pariprasnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshana. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. In this lecture by Keshav Maharaj, he mentions it so beautifully that parampara means that the disciple touches the heart of the guru. And that I found really profound, because I think it just changed my view. He said that it's not just a relationship of knowledge transmission. It's not that knowledge is just transferred. Actually, what happens is, it's a touching of hearts. So, the disciple touches the guru's heart, and then the guru opens and reveals his heart to the disciple. Then the disciple understands the heart of the guru, and then his own heart becomes filled with that mood of the spiritual master. And then at a later time, when that disciple matures and progresses in Krishna consciousness, someone else can come and touch that disciple's heart. And the disciple will open his heart and reveal his mood to that other person, and then that person's heart will be filled with that mood, and then that's how the parampara goes on. It's by this continual touching of hearts. Shri Shri Radha Radhanath ki jai, Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai, Shri Giri Govardhan ki jai. So he said that parampara is not just a transfer of knowledge, it is a touching of hearts. And that every disciple must touch the heart of the spiritual master. And every subsequent disciple must touch the heart of their guru. And then the disciple will learn the truth. And he mentions that we can't learn the truth just from the books. It's said in this verse it's actually quoted by, I think, Yudhishthira Maharaj, but it's found in CC, Madhya Leela 17:186. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, "Dry arguments are inconclusive. A great personality whose opinion does not differ from others is not considered a great sage. Simply by studying the Vedas, which are variegated, one cannot come to the right path by which religious principles are understood. The solid truth of religious principles is hidden in the heart of an unadulterated, self-realized person. Consequently, as the Shastras confirm, one should accept whatever progressive path the Mahajans advocate." So Keshav Maharaj highlighted this point that the solid truth of religious principles is hidden in the heart of an unadulterated, self-realized person. So that means that the secrets of Dharma are hidden in the hearts of the Vaishnavas. So we need access to the heart. Then we can learn the truth. So he is just making this point that it's not simply about knowledge transfer. So we must please the spiritual master, and then he will be inclined to bestow benediction and realization on us. Every disciple must understand the heart of the spiritual master. In the Shastra, there's a description of different kinds of spiritual masters, and Kadamba Maharaj speaks about this often, that there's 3 descriptions. One is of the bird, and the bird is feeding its young constantly, giving tons of attention and care and protection in a very personal way. So like that, the spiritual master could also be a bird to the disciple, where he's taking care very personally, giving lots of attention and guidance. Then there's another description, which is that of a fish. So it said that the fish has really big eyes and just watches the disciple and is very protective, watching, always looking out, but not necessarily deeply involved, but always there. So you can always go to the spiritual master when he's in that mood. He's always watching, protective, but also letting you continue in your spiritual life. And then the third description is that of the tortoise, who simply lays its eggs and lets the sun do the rest. That's it. The tortoise just meditates on the young. So he said that the spiritual master may just meditate on you after a while. They may not communicate with you, but they are always meditating on our well-being. So those are the different kinds of spiritual masters. And in this lecture by Keshav Maharaj, he describes from the Shastra the 6 kinds of bad disciples, because he said that in order to know what's a good disciple, we have to also know what's a bad disciple, and then you don't do that. So, and this is from the Shastra. He had all the Sanskrit words for each type, but I did not write those down. But the first one he mentioned is the bee-like disciple. That was interesting to me, because usually we're told to be like bees, search for the nectar, not be like flies, and navigate around the feces. But in this circumstance, being like a bee is actually a negative thing, because the bee-like disciple simply goes around taking nectar from everywhere, but doesn't commit to anything or anyone. So it's describing a fickle disciple. It's just going here and there, but not making a firm commitment. So that's actually a symptom of being a bad disciple. It's not to say that we can't take instruction and guidance from many places, but we should have a commitment made in our spiritual life to a spiritual master and fix ourselves in that. Because if we just take instructions from here, there, and everywhere, then we could just be taking the instructions we like. We could go to every senior personality and just take what we like from them and discard whatever instructions we don't like and then move on. But actually our spiritual master they'll give us instructions that we like and that we don't like. And the purification comes from following the ones we don't like also, because it's easy to follow instructions that we like. So the good disciple is the opposite of this. The good disciple has loyalty, is chaste to their spiritual master, and will never leave. The bee-like disciple thinks, I'll take something from here, but now it's too difficult, so I'll go somewhere else. And then I'll go to another place when that gets difficult. But a good disciple never leaves the spiritual master. The second type of bad disciple is the arrow-like disciple. This type of disciple pierces the heart of the guru, it is said, like an arrow. So they cause pain by their words and deeds to the spiritual master. They act in ways that violates the guru's direction. So we've taken vows and we know that pleases the spiritual master, but we're doing the opposite. We're not following them. So it's also described that instead of fighting Maya, that disciple takes those arrows and shoots it at the spiritual master by violating their instructions. So to be the opposite of this is to be obedient, to listen, to follow through with our commitments, and to follow what the spiritual master says. The third type of bad disciple, the Sanskrit word was Jyoti Shaka, and it means the astrologer disciple. The disciple who's like, I know what my spiritual master wants. I know exactly how to follow it, but all the conditions have to be right. Everything has to be favorable. Everything has to be in alignment. Everything must be in the best possible way for this to work out, and then I will follow it. So I identified with that a little bit, felt attacked. But it's true. It's this type of disciples waiting for all the circumstances to be perfect in order to execute the Guru's instructions. But Keshav Maharaj was saying that Prabhupada didn't wait. He had no good circumstances when he went to America. He had no money. He had no followers. He had no support from even his godbrothers. He had 2 heart attacks. He had bad health. His circumstances weren't good at all, and he lived in such a way that he gives us no excuses. Because if we have an excuse of bad health, we think, well, Prabhupada had worse health on the ship. And if we say we don't have people to help us, Prabhupada had no help and he was much older. So we cannot wait, even though I do wait all the time. But someone asked this question to Keshav Maharaj in the class, which I thought was very intelligent. They said that Prabhupada waited so long from the time he got the instruction to when he actually left. So people could accuse him of being this kind of disciple that's waiting for favorable circumstances. But Keshav Maharaj said that he would have only been that kind of disciple if he wasn't meditating and preparing for it the whole time. All those years he spent since Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur gave him that instruction to actually going to the West, it wasn't just time that he wasted. He spent that time preparing himself, closing off his material responsibilities, going to Radha Damodar and channeling the energy and praying for mercy and serving in order to be able to do this huge task of bringing Krishna consciousness to the West. So that was not him waiting. And he got the signal from his spiritual master that now's the time. Because materially, it also, when he went, it also wasn't favorable for him, but he went because that was the time. That was the right time. So Srila Prabhupada is the perfect example of being a good disciple and taking the spiritual master's instructions and following it through perfectly. Then the fourth type of bad disciple is the lazy disciple. So they know what to do, but can't generate the energy and enthusiasm in which to do it. So also felt attacked again. But it was a very nice learning experience from this class. He said that, Keshav Maharaj said that the good disciple doesn't waste a moment. So a lazy disciple may know what to do, but may not be able to do it because of just not having that enthusiasm or energy. But a good disciple just never wastes a moment. They always fixed in the spiritual master's instruction, always attentive, always looking for newer ways to fulfill that instruction. Then there's the fifth type of bad disciple, which has, I forgot the Sanskrit word. It was like the opposite of kinkara, because kinkara means like personal attendant. But the Sanskrit word basically means, according to Keshav Maharaj, was, what, just me? You know, like, I have to do it? Why should I do it? Basically that no one else is doing it, why should I do it? So you know what needs to be done. But because nobody else is doing it, you think, well, I don't have to do it either. I don't have to take responsibility for this. And he said that a good disciple will see that no one else is doing it, so that therefore I should do it, which is a strong mind shift. So that was an interesting one. And then the sixth type of bad disciple was the pass the buck disciple. So that's the disciple that knows all the instructions of the guru and just tells other people about it without following it themselves. They're just there to just instruct everyone else. Like, Guru Maharaj said this, Guru Maharaj said that, Srila Prabhupada said this. But the focus is on others, it's not on themselves. So that's another type of bad disciple. And Keshav Maharaj said that the good disciple will not only tell others, the good disciple will follow through it. It's not bad to tell others what the instructions are if they need to know, but we also have to follow through it and be an example, really, of following the instruction. So I felt like that class was very instructive, and it left me with a lot to think about, because this topic is very important in our spiritual life, actually. Like I said at the beginning, just having a spiritual master doesn't mean that we'll get transcendental realization if we're not honoring that relationship for what it is. If we see it as material, if we see it as casual or familiar, then and not as the most important relationship spiritually, then the transcendental realization just won't come. And there's this verse in the Svetasvatar Upanishad, Yasya deve para bhaktir, yata deve tata guru, Tasyeta katita hyarta prakashante mahatmana. Only unto those great souls who have implicit faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master are all the imports of Vedic knowledge automatically revealed. So that's another thing. We have to have faith in the Lord and the spiritual master. So not just submissively inquiring, but also having faith that this person, that I can trust this person. This person is giving me the right guidance, the right medicine to cure my disease. So faith is actually the biggest part of that relationship. And the spiritual master also has faith in us, in the disciple. He has faith that we can progress on the spiritual path. So it's mutual faith. We have faith that the spiritual master will instruct us and guide us. And if we take the instruction, we will go back to Godhead. And the spiritual master has faith when they give us shelter that this disciple will progress in Krishna consciousness. So it's a relationship of mutual trust and faith. And it's not that we just take a commitment at initiation to follow vows. The spiritual master also takes a commitment to bring us back to Godhead. I was seeing in some initiation ceremonies of Indradyumna Maharaj, he actually says it to his disciples, that I will vow to take you back to Godhead, back to Goloka Vrindavan. It's very sweet. So I think I'll stop there. Are there any questions or comments or corrections? Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for sharing those points about the disciples so that we can all feel attacked. I was thinking about the second one, the arrow, and I was remembering an interaction with Kadambakana Maharaj and a disciple who had told him that they were struggling to chant all their rounds. And then he said, "Et tu brute," which is, at the time when I heard it, I didn't understand what it was because I wasn't such a Shakespeare fan. But then when you look into the Shakespeare, it's Julius Caesar, and who was attacked by all the people in his own ministry. I don't know the proper word for it. And the one person who he was grooming to take after him, who turned against him. And when everybody stabbed Julius Caesar, Brutus was the last one. And Julius Caesar was fighting against it. But at the point where he saw Brutus, and Brutus stabbed him, that's when he gave in and he died. And so the response to that disciple was, "Et tu brute," you too? So it brought me back that image of turning the arrow that is meant to fight Maya and facing it to the spiritual master.
Wow.
And a question is, Prabhupada uses the word gentle and devoted. Then he says submissive and devoted. And then he says submission, inquiry, and service. So would you say that gentle and submissive is interchangeable?
I think so, because in that verse, the one I quoted from Srimad Bhagavatam 118, I think that word snigdasya, I saw it translated as gentle, but then in the translation it was written as, it was translated as submissive, but in the translation, like the word for word translation was submissive, then in the translation was gentle. So I thought, probably similar, very similar words that I took it as. I was also thinking about that because some of us don't have a naturally gentle demeanor, like in our nature. And I think this kind of verse doesn't exclude such people. I think it's the mood in which we approach the spiritual master, and that mood is pleasing to the spiritual master. Because sometimes you could come with you could have a naturally fiery nature, but to your spiritual master, you're still submissive. So even if you're coming, asking questions in a passionate mood, you're not antagonistic towards him. He could see that you're distressed or something, but he's not seeing that you're coming with this challenging, like, who are you? So I think that's also, the spiritual master is merciful, and they wouldn't discount you if you were ever not gentle in that sense of being like really, putting your hands together and covered head and just being that. But I think a spiritual master could understand, but they understand your internal mood. So they know if you're coming with that, like an antagonistic mood towards them, then they will not reveal. They may spend time with you and answer your questions, but you won't understand. Like, it won't give realization. Is there any other comments or questions? Okay, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande.